Yo, what is going on, guys? And welcome back to 365 Analytics. So today we are back with another video. It's probably the closest we've been in uploads in a very, very long time. Last week, obviously, we did our 2026 March Madness bracket, and today I am going to be doing a second chance bracket as long as previewing the Sweet 16 games we have this weekend in each region. I will say, probably one of my better brackets recently. I mean, my whole Final Four is still alive going to the second weekend, so that is always a positive. I know a lot of people's Final Four was busted when Florida eventually lost, but yeah, so I'm gonna go in depth on all these games, talk about them, talk about what matchups I'm really intrigued with, and talk about some upsets I might have, and so on and so forth. Before we start today, if you guys do enjoy today's video, please like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more content exactly like this. And without further ado, let's get right into the video. We'll start off with the second chance bracket, the East region. On Friday night, probably the most anticipated region, the most anticipated Sweet 16 region. This will be in Washington, D.C., I believe. Washington, D.C., that's where this is. Where the Wizards play. I don't remember the exact arena name. I'm not that huge of an NBA guy, but two very, very good games, four elite head coaches, and this is interesting. We have Duke versus St. John's. We have Michigan State versus UConn, exactly what I predicted in my bracket. We'll start off with Duke versus St. John's. These two teams are coming off a thrilling weekend to say the least. Duke was in an absolute sweat fest with 16 seeded Siena, then eventually got past TCU, and then St. John's bruised in the first round versus Northern Iowa, and then almost blew it, but eventually won the game versus Kansas and Bill Self. They were up like 14, 15 points late. Kansas climbed all the way back, and then Dylan Darling hit the game winning layup. But this game's in Washington, D.C. I think this will be a very, very interesting game. Without Caleb Foster, Duke has looked a little bit iffy. He is he has an outside chance of playing in this game, so we'll see if he ends up just playing. If you saw my original bracket, I picked Duke, and that's what I'm going to stick with. But I'm low-key going to be rooting for Rick Pitino and St. John's here. I really, really hope Rick Pitino can get this done. I think it'd be a great story with Zuby Ejiofor and Rick Pitino to go on one last deep, deep run into the tournament. But I'm going to take Duke in this one. I think St. John's is shooting, their lack of shooting, I should say, is going to eventually come back to bite them and hurt them in this game. So, yeah, I'm going to take Duke in the first game. In the second game, we have two more elite head coaches, MSU and Connecticut. MSU, obviously, Tom Izzo, absolute legend in March Madness. I think he's made 8 Final Fours, something like that. And UConn, they've won 2 of the last 3 championships. Dan Hurley is an absolute elite head coach. Two teams that are very, very, very dangerous. I mean, Michigan State's inconsistency could be the death of them. But I feel like the same thing with UConn. They were in a sweat fest with Furman, the 15th seed in the first round. This is a very tough game to pick. I'm gonna stick with my bracket here. Obviously, if that's the direction I'm going. On Friday night, this game is the late game on Friday night. I'm a huge fan of Tom Izzo. I'm also a huge fan of Dan Hurley. I'm gonna pick Michigan State. That was my original pick to go to the Elite Eight. I'm gonna stay with them. I think Michigan State's bigs with Jackson Kohler and Carson Cooper will be a big advantage in this game. So I'm gonna take them to get to the Elite Eight. And we'll go down. We'll go down more because this is more of a Sweet 16 preview. We're trying to preview the Sweet 16 games, and I'll just basically do my bracket again. This one on Thursday, a lot of people are pumped up for this one. The battle of the corn states, basically cornfields throughout these two states. This one should be very, very intriguing. A Cinderella Sweet 16 run for the Iowa Hawkeyes, knocking off the number 1 seed Florida Gators. The game-winning shot to win the game. Xavier Lee tried to kick it out, and Florida eventually couldn't win. This one's in Houston, Iowa versus Nebraska. If you told me 2 years ago that these two would be playing for a chance to go to the Elite Eight, I'd call you pretty insane. Big Ten matchup. These two have played a few times already this season. So, yes, this should be very, very, very interesting matchup. Bennett Sturts, he was off versus Florida, and they still somehow escaped, which is insane to say because Bennett Sturts is their killer. He's their clutch killer. Nebraska obviously played a tough, tough, tough fought game versus the Vanderbilt Commodores. I thought Vanderbilt was going to win the game. Tyler Tanner gave him a huge, huge scare at the end. Almost, almost won the game on the half court game winner. But this one's very tough for me to pick. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't really. I'm going back and forth in this game, but I feel like Destiny all rise in the same. I feel like if Bennett Sturts has to play better, but I feel like he's going to. I'm going to take the Iowa Hawkeyes to go all the way to the Elite Eight as a number 9 seed. And yeah, that's basically what it is. I'm picking the golden 9 seed. Oh, you can't see the top here. You can't see the top of these teams, but Illinois versus Houston. This should be a very good game. I feel like it's offense versus defense. Houston is very, very not prone to upsets. They take care of business. Kelvin Sampson, obviously one of the strong head coaches in the country. Brad Underwood versus Kelvin Sampson. This should be very, very interesting. If you guys watch my bracket, Houston is my championship pick, so I'm gonna say it right off the bat. There, I'm going with the Houston Cougars. This game's in the Toyota Center where the Houston Rockets play, so a glorified home game for the Houston Cougars. Going to the Final Four these next 2 games for them if they evidently win this one. They will go to the Elite Eight and play also in Houston. But yeah, this should be a very, very interesting game. Keaton Wagler, Kingston Flemings, two star-studded freshman guards. Then you have veterans like Emmanuel Sharp, who is obviously a Houston great at this point. They've been there for a few years now. Um, Houston's defense, arguably the best in the country. I argue right there with Iowa State. So yeah, this one's a hard pick for a lot of people. A lot of people are on the Illinois bandwagon, but Houston's my champ. That's what I'm going with. So I picked them originally in my bracket anyway. So yeah. Then we go up to the West region. These games are on Thursday night in San Jose. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm really excited for this one right here. Razorbacks versus Wildcats. John Calipari versus Tommy Lloyd. Darius Acuff versus Koa Pete. The star power that the Arizona Wildcats have with Braden Burries. All those guys. Um, yeah. Most people are on. There's a lot. Give it this. There's some people on Arizona. There's some people on Arkansas because of Darius Acuff, how much of a killer he is. Calipari's tournament experience versus Tommy Lloyd's tournament experience. It eventually feels like Arizona's year at some point. Um, a lot of people are talking about Arkansas's lack of defense to be the downfall. They were in an absolute sweat fest versus High Point. They have two stars on the league guards, so let's be real. Darius Acuff, 23 points a game. Malik Thomas, 15 points a game. Koa Pete is one of the best forwards in the country. If you guys saw my original bracket, I'm gonna be taking the same Final Four here, my second chance bracket. I'm sticking with my Final Four. I'm taking the Arkansas Razorbacks. Not many people. I mean, there's some. There's someone Arkansas like me because I talked about it in last week's video. Darius Acuff is an absolute killer, and he proved that versus High Point. So I'm taking Arkansas, but a lot of people most people are on Arizona because of Arkansas's lack of defense. But I'm sticking by my original bracket. I'm taking the Razorbacks. And you have your lowest seed in the Elite Eight, Texas versus Purdue, the 11 seeded Texas versus the 2 seeded Purdue Boilermakers. Texas, their center. I don't even know how to pronounce his name. Here he is, Matas Vokatitis. Vokatitis? Vokatitis. He's been an absolute killer in this tournament. Starting with the first four, obviously, Texas has played 3 games so far, knocking off NC State to get here, knocking off BYU, and then eventually knocking off Mark Few and Gonzaga in an upset win. I'm going to be taking the Purdue Boilermakers here. One last ride for Braden Smith, one last ride for TKR, Oscar Clough coming over in the transfer portal. It's really one last ride with this version of the Purdue team and Matt Painter. So I feel like they have to make some noise in this year's tournament. I think Braden Smith is good enough to do so. He has to shoot well to win a game like this. I think the big man on both teams will be a very, very interesting matchup. I think Texas Matas, I'll just say Matas. Swain can shoot too. Swain's really good. But Matas Volkatitis, I think he might have the upper edge a little bit in this one, but I'm going to take Purdue. I think Braden Smith needs to show up. I'll tell you that. I think Braden Smith needs to show up. Obviously, one of the best passers in the country, but he needs to shoot well. Then we'll go down to the Midwest region. Honestly, probably the easiest region for me to predict and the least controversy. We'll see about Aiden Holloway for Alabama in this game. We'll see if he's able to play. I don't believe he will be. I'm taking Michigan Wolverines pretty easily here. One of the best teams in basketball all year long. And that's the direction I'm going. I just don't see Philon as an absolute stud. Great freshman year for him. But I just don't see it being enough. I just don't see Alabama having enough to knock off Michigan. Absolutely killed Texas Tech in their last game. Michigan was in a little bit of a sweat fest with St. Louis there for a little bit, but then pulled away at the end. St. Louis just didn't have enough star power to compete with the Wolverines. I'm taking Michigan pretty easily. And we have two pretty good head coaches here, Rick Barnes, TJ Otzelberger. I guess it's really offense versus defense. ISU, probably one of the best defensive teams in the country. I put them right there with Houston. Tennessee, they're on a great run now, knocking off Virginia. They are now in the Sweet 16 for I believe the fourth year in a row under Rick Barnes. Rick Barnes has made a lot of noise going to the second weekend, but they can't get over the hump and go to that third weekend. I'm taking Iowa State here pretty easily. I think that Joshua Jefferson injury could be detrimental, but I still have confidence in them to get past Tennessee. I think even without Jefferson, I think Otzelberger is an absolute star-studded head coach. So yeah, I'm gonna take them to get past there. I'm going to go through the Elite Eight games a little bit quicker here. Since it's not really a preview, we don't know if these matchups will actually be happening. This is what I have in my second chance bracket. I'm taking Duke over Michigan State. I think Michigan State's inconsistency will be a little bit the death of them in this game. I think Duke is more star power. Obviously, the likely player of the year in Cam Boozer. We'll see about Caleb Foster. I do not anticipate him playing this weekend. I anticipate him to be back for the Final Four. They evidently do make it there. But I think even without him, it is enough. They have Gongba back. I think they'll be able to do enough to get to the Final Four. Taking Houston over Iowa. That was my original Final Four. I'm gonna have the same exact one here. Sets up for a Duke versus Houston Final Four rematch. 2 years in a row, we'd have this Final Four matchup if this evidently did happen. Houston just feels like such a good year for them, man. Milos Uzan, the guards they have, Kingston Fleming, Sharp is still there. Chase McCarty is shooting lights out. JoJo Tugler is one of the best big man. I wouldn't want to say one of the best big men in the country, but he's an absolute scrappy big man down in the post. So I'm taking Houston. Arkansas versus Purdue. I'm just liking Calipari. I'm liking Calipari this year, man. Arkansas has made noise in the past tournaments, even before Calipari got there. Um, the star-started guard duo for Arkansas. I think it's gonna be enough to get past Purdue. And Michigan versus Iowa State. I'm taking Michigan there. We'll see about Joshua Jefferson got hurt in the first game of the tournament, but yeah. And the final four, I'm staying the same as I did last week. I'm taking Houston. I'm taking Arkansas. And the champion, the Houston Cougars. The Houston Cougars avenged their loss to Florida last year and win the championship under Kelvin Sampson. If they win the championship, does Kelvin Sampson retire? That would be a good conversation to have. We already have UNC's job open up. Hubert Davis was relieved of his duties yesterday. There's rumors of Bill Self potentially leaving Kansas and or retiring, so we'll see what happens there. The national championship game, I think I had 71 to 66 last week, so that would be 137, right? 137. Yep. I'm gonna stay with that. And yeah, that's a little bit of Sweet 16 preview, a little bit of a quicker video today. We got a little bit under 15 minutes. If you guys did enjoy, please like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more content exactly like this. We'll likely be back next week with a Final Four preview. We'll have NFL mock drafts coming up. The draft is obviously a little under a month now in April, so I hope you guys did enjoy today's video. I'll see y'all next time.